the decisions I think everyone has to make when they're trying to understand what their true self-narrative is or the direction they should be moving in, is like what actually intrinsically matters to you. And it's so difficult to know these days who you actually are and what actually matters to you, especially if you're growing up in my generation where you have, all of these screens and all of these social networks telling you that entrepreneur is the thing to do, but also you need to be traveling all the time, and these contrasting narratives, and you kind of lose yourself within that. And so by stripping away a lot of by understanding these forces that had taken hold of me in my life, like insecurity and comparison, I was able to get closer to like listening to that voice within me that was like, this is who we are. And now I try and make my decisions on that basis, which is a real clear understanding of my intrinsic values. And I try and place my time against those values. So one of them is my health at the moment. I went from being a really skinny guy to being in the best shape of my life because I started to understand that one of my intrinsic values was to live a happy, healthy life. Part of the issue when we're thinking about making radical change in our lives is we see it as being stood at the foot of like Mount Everest, a huge mountain. We want to completely change our life. But as is the case in my life and probably yours, for me, it starts with like first picking up the smallest pebble, whatever that is. And I've seen this time and time again with my podcast guests as well, who were down and out. My last guest on the podcast was a guy that was suicidal, had just left his house to go and kill himself. He couldn't bring himself to do it, comes home and he watches a YouTube video, just an advert that popped up, and it showed him these military commandos, and that just gave him a sense of something. It gave him a sense of fire here. So that day he put on his shorts and he said, what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna put on my shorts and I'm just gonna go for a run. And it was that run which ultimately led to another run and another run, and it changed his life. He became an elite military commando. He's now like a mindset coach, and he's now, absolutely dominating the world. Sometimes it requires a spark, and that spark, for me or for a lot of people, is understanding that there is something worth taking the first step for. And for me, in terms of like the practical way you start to build those case studies, it literally is. It can be the smallest thing. It can be deciding the name of the business. It can be getting out of bed at 7 a.m. that day. It can be the smallest thing. And when you start to look at it like small, tiny decisions compounding in your favor versus having to climb Everest, I think then it becomes a little bit more mentally achievable than a lot of sort of Instagram hustle porn stars might want to make you believe. It's the small, seemingly insignificant things that are compounding for or against us in every aspect of our life, whether we know it or not. The old analogy of, if I eat a cookie today, I won't be fat. If I eat a cookie tomorrow, I won't be fat. If I eat a cookie every single day for the next 5 years, I will be fat. And you look at, the way that great things happen, the Grand Canyon, I think I talk about in the book, if you got 100 million gallons of water and dropped it on a mountain, there would be no impact. It wouldn't change shape. But if you get a trickle of water and you trickle it through the mountain for 10 years, you will have a Grand Canyon. Like that's how you move huge objects and achieve great things. It's that showing up every single day. Because again, people think that performing radical change in your life is some like quantum physics equation that they've got to solve to move this mountain, but it's not. It's the one thing you can control is your time. You can see it as I get 24 chips every single day. I'm stood in front of this roulette table. My job is to place as many of these chips on things that are in line with my values, because then at the end of the day, the roulette wheel spins and you see what returns you made. And so every single day, I just think about my 24 chips and where I'm going to place them today. And are those decisions in line with my values? And that's how if I want to try and simplify my thinking to that level, it feels really achievable and manageable. When I think about trying to change my life, it's daunting and terrifying, but placing my 24 chips better every single day, 16 by the time I've woken up, it feels like something that I can achieve, How would the person I want to be use their time? And I find that as a really useful distilling question to ask myself, because sometimes you don't know what the right thing to do is, but the person you want to be, I feel like we all have an idea of how they behave. And so I can ask myself, even when I'm about to consume, like a big McDonald's burger, would the person I want to be make this decision? And for some reason, that feels like an easier question to answer than is it right now? Because our present self, as we all know, tends to lean towards seeking comfort and likes to avoid discomfort, whether psychological or physical. Basically, that comfort is a short-term friend but a long-term enemy. Like, so in the moment, I'm continually not making maybe the best decisions, but in the long term, that comfort will stab me in the back, whether that's my health, my fitness, or my intrinsic joy. So that's really the most important question I'm asking myself when I'm thinking about placing my chips.